Thank you. Welcome to Accessible Multimedia. I'm Ann Newland, the Accessibility Specialist with the Center of Online Learning, and I'm glad to have all of you here today. I'm just going to turn on my video for just a minute, say hello, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn it off just to preserve a little bit more bandwidth. I've got a lot of things going on here, and I'll just want to make sure that that's focused on the presentation. So I'm Ann Newland, Accessibility Specialist with the Center of Online Learning, and what we're going to be discussing today is creating accessible multimedia, but we're also going to be focused on just good design. Whenever you're including multimedia in your course, if you include these accessibility features, then you're going to be making sure that it's better for everybody. And by accessible, that means that the images, the text, the colors used, the recordings, those are going to be available for all users, whether or not, regardless of their abilities. So it's just good design. So first we're going to discuss accessible images. We've got the topics for today on the left, and then we have the CSU accessibility guidelines that those adhere to on the right-hand side. But let's go ahead and dive right into accessible images. We need to add alternative text to all images that are functional or informational. By functional, I mean that they are a link, that image has a function. So if your image is a hyperlink, then the alternative text for that image should describe the link destination. Now, alternative text is text that's not visible to most users, but it is read aloud by screen users, screen readers, and some text readers. So we don't usually see alternative text, but it's very critical for some of our students. So if your image is a link, you should have alternative text describing the link destination. We also need alternative text for informational images. Informational images are images that convey meaning. The user is going to learn something or understand something based on the image. And our images are put into our courses really to support the text information. But since not all users can get the same amount of information from the image, we do need to add that alternative text. Alternative text should describe the purpose of the image in the context in which it's used. Not so much a description of the image, but the purpose of the image. We can see on this slide, we have an image of George Washington. Let's consider two different situations in which this image may be used. If it was used in a slide, and the title of the slide was the first 5 presidents of the United States, then the alternative text for this image would appropriately be George Washington, first president. But if this image was used in a longer document that was a biography of George Washington, the alternative text might want to read George Washington, political leader, soldier, statesman, and first president of the United States. So the alternative text should describe the meaning behind the image for that particular context. Now, for most word processing applications, software tools, to add the alternative text, you're just going to right-click. But I'm using an older version of PowerPoint. This would be the same in an older version of Word. You have to take a few more clicks. So I'm going to right-click on this image. Whoops, that's not, there we go. And I do not see, actually I copied it for some strange reason, but I'm just going to keep going because this is what you see when you right-click. If you had a newer version of Microsoft Office, such as PowerPoint or Word 2019 or Office 365, when you right-click, you would see Edit Alternative Text on this little pop-up, but I don't see that right now. So I'm just going to select Format Picture, and I will get to that alternative text field. It's just going to take a few more clicks. And then that opens up the Format Picture pane. I know that's kind of small, but the third icon from the left is Size and Properties. And then on the very bottom is Alt Text. And you have a title and a description field. And you would write the alternative text. It always goes in the description field. So I'm just going to put George Washington. And then you would just close that. And alternative text will be read aloud by a screen reader. I'm going to grab that other one back there. I'm going to cut that. There we go. So now we only have one image. All right. And I will demonstrate how to add alternative text in Cougar View too in a few minutes. But we're going to go ahead and keep demonstrating complex images or accessible images. For simple images, such as those on the previous slide, it's easy to write concise alternative text that provides an equivalent meaning of the image in about 140 characters or less. But what about images like that seen on this slide? This is an outline of the state of Georgia, the counties, and the title of this image is COVID-19 Confirmed Cases by County. This image was designed by the Georgia Department of Public Health on April 10th. So this is a little bit dated right now, but it would be very difficult to describe the purpose of this image and an equivalent meaning of this image succinctly in the alternative text. So what you would need to do, you would right-click on the image and select Edit Alt Text, and you would add a summary of the image in the alt text field. And then you would need to add a more detailed description in the surrounding text on the slide or in the document. And so for this situation, we would right-click. I think I've already added a summary in the alternative text field. Over to Size and Properties. Yes. Georgia Department of Public Health, Georgia cases of COVID-19 by county, April 10th. So that's done. But what I would have to do is provide a more detailed description, including, starting with the overview, but then including information such as Fulton County has over 621 cases. DeKalb County has over 466, as does Dougherty County. And so I would add that information right on the same slide. And I've got a great resource, the Diagram Center Image Description Guideline, which provides details on how to describe images in a variety of subject areas. And that is provided for you in the chat. The link to that is in the chat. It's a really great resource. So simple images are pretty easy. Complex images take a little bit more work, but it's definitely worth the work. And then we'll move on. The next subject we're going to address is accessible typography or text. And we've got two little boxes on the slide. The first indicating good choices for your text, for your multimedia, whether this be presentation or just a document or a web page. But whatever it is, you want to choose a sans serif font, such as Helvetica, Arial, or Calibri. You want to avoid italics, and you want to use text that is an appropriate and legible size. So for PowerPoint slides, the slide text, such as that used in the body, should be 28 points or more. The title should be 44 points or more. For documents, your font should be 12 or more. Left aligned text is going to be more accessible and readable. We get into trouble with centered and justified text because there's very irregular white space, and that can make it difficult for people who struggle with reading or who have learning disorders related to reading. You also, it's best to avoid all caps in the body of your text because that can indicate that somebody's upset or yelling at you. And also, you want to avoid using color alone to convey meaning. It's much better to add additional ways to bring attention to specific text, such as the word important. Now, on the right-hand side, we do see the same information, but that's written in italics in a very strange font, and it's center aligned and it is smaller. So we can see just at first glance that does create some readability issues. Any questions at this point about images or text? Okay, best design practices for color. All right, we can see that the background of this slide has been designed in a blue that does not provide sufficient contrast when compared with the text color. So best practices are to check the contrast between the background and the text color or foreground color and make sure that those two have a contrast ratio that's greater than 4 5/10 to 1. Now, a tool that I always use, I know it's probably very difficult to read on this screen, is a WebAIM color contrast checker. And that is also included in the links in the chat. That makes it pretty easy for you to check the foreground and or text color against the background color and determine the contrast and also whether or not that passes the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines of 4.5 to 1 or fails. And this slide has a contrast ratio just under the guidelines. It's 4 45/100 to 1. Now for a PowerPoint presentation, you can easily change that by selecting the Design tab up in the ribbon. It is the third from the left. So I'm going to go to Design, and then let's see, there we go. Now you see that. Way over on the right, we see Format Background. If your version of PowerPoint doesn't look exactly like this, the Design tab has not changed, and the Format Background should also be visible. All right, and then I've got in the format Background pane, I've got the color option, and there's a little paint can, and I'm going to open up the menu next to the paint can, and I'm going to get some choices of colors. And since the text is dark, I'm going to choose one that's a little bit lighter. Ah, that's a great relief, isn't it? And it is much easier to read. Now, we might still have issues with the followed hyperlink color here. It's a little hard to dig that out of the styles, but I could help you with that if you ever come to a situation where you need to adjust your followed hyperlink color. If I had not accessed this link, it would still be a blue color. But is how we check color contrast. Now, I'm just going to navigate over to that WebAIM color contrast checker and demo that quickly. Okay, we can all see that. Good. All right, so here in the WebAIM contrast checker, we have our foreground color, which is the text color, and the background color, which is, of course, the background of your slide or your website. And we have a little paint chip here. If we click on the paint chip, now I'm using a Mac, so mine looks a little different from yours would look like in Word. But you will get the option to input your red, green, blue colors or your hex color. And I'm going to change this real quickly to 0, 0, because black is 0, 0, and then I'm going to enter. And then for the background color, I'm going to, let's see if that's going to take. There we go. It's still not wanting to change. There we go. For the background color, I'm just going to choose a color that looks sort of like the background of that previous slide. That might be a little bit darker. And select enter and close that. Now that's a pass, but I'm going to make it a little bit darker because there we go. I think my slide was, the background color was closer to this. And then we can see that for normal text, that's under 18 points, the contrast fails. For large text, it passes. And for our legal obligations, we need to pass WCAG AA, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines AA. So that's a really helpful tool, very easy to learn. If you have other questions about that, let me adjust that. It was about 4.5. Can't get it right there, but 4.45, still fail. About using this tool, please reach out to me. My contact information is available on the last slide. But that's color. Any questions about accessible color contrast? Okay. I'm going to move on to accessible recordings. Audio recordings just have sound, and audio recordings, to be accessible, must include a transcript of the words and sounds in the recording. Transcripts can be generated from accurate caption files, and I do have an audio recording on this slide, but you're not going to be able to hear it because there is a setting in Collaborate that you have to enable that allows you to hear computer sounds. But what I've done was I got this transcript from the caption file, and I just pasted it right in the slide. And this would be an accessible audio recording. It does have an audio, but it also has a transcript which has the text equivalent to that audio information. So for videos, it's a little bit more complex. Let me get rid of that format background pane. Videos must include accurate closed captions, and closed captions, they're called closed because they can be closed. They can be turned on and off by the user, and that is, those are considered the best and most accessible types of captions to use. Accurate captions must have correct sentence structure. They cannot be run on text, which means, unfortunately, that YouTube auto-generated captions are not accessible. That text must be divided into correct sentences with capitalization and punctuation. Accurate captions must also have correct spelling, and they must be time synced to the video. If there's more than one speaker in the video, then captions must include speaker identification. Now you can request captions from COOL, or you can ask a CSU librarian for help finding captioned videos. We can also, anybody at COOL can guide you to some multimedia databases that use only accurate captioned videos. And we do dive much deeper into this subject matter in our course that COOL provides, Best Practices in Instructional Media. Now I've got an example of a, and I'm going to go ahead and open this. This is a video that does include closed captions, and what we can see here once this loads and we play and we turn on the captions, play again, we can see that once the video starts, you can see those caption files that are time synced to the video. They scroll along with the video. So let me go ahead and pause that. And this is an example of a video that was captioned using My Media, and we are going to, we'll discuss that briefly in this session, but we do get much more detailed in our best practices in instructional media course. So, in summary, any questions about accessible multimedia or accessible audio or video? I'm going to demonstrate how to apply these same features in Cougar View, but first I just want to let you know, actually let me flip over to Cougar View right now, and I'll come back to that last slide. Okay, I am signed into one of my full-length trainings, Developing Inclusive Practices, and is a Cougar View content page. What you see is a content page with a very long title. This is a demo of a Cougar View page with accessible images, use of color, and I know I have video and audio, but I'm going to demonstrate how to add some of these features, in addition to some other helpful accessibility features. But first I'm going to demonstrate how to add an accessible image. So I've got a Cougar View content page. I have a section on accessible images, and I'm going to edit the HTML. So I'm going to expand the menu to the right of the page title and select Edit HTML. And then I see my handy Cougar View HTML toolbar, and that has many options, those shown and some more, for editing the Cougar View content of your page. Cool can definitely help you understand what all of these mean, but I'm going to scroll down to accessible images, and I'm going to place my cursor where I want that image, and I'm going to select Insert Image. This is the second from the left. And I'm going to navigate to an image on my computer, and I'm going to find that image in my downloads. And I had a lovely treat this morning, and I'm getting ready to show you. And I'm going to add that image. And the alternative text is Night Blooming Cirrus. Now when I there we go. I can spell. Too much going on right now. Okay. You notice when I added that image, I got this pop-up, which was very helpful, and it provided a field for me to add the alternative text. So I'm going to say Night Blooming Cirrus with pink blossom. And I'm going to say okay. And then it gives me, I'm going to overwrite my existing file. It gives me a beautiful, this image is large, I will have to resize it, but this is what I found this morning. So I've got a beautiful Night Blooming Cirrus image. I do need to cancel that. Let's try to scroll all the way down. It's so big that it doesn't want to scroll to the bottom. Why? Let me minimize that so I can see all the way down here so I can cancel. All right, so that's how we add an image with alternative text in Cougar View. It really makes it very easy because when we add an image in the Insert Image tool, we do get a pop-up for adding the alternative text. Now, I did want you to notice that our second topic, accessible typography or text, the text in this Cougar View page is a sans serif font. It is left aligned. There are not italics. The font is a very good font size, and all of this has been set up for us because this page was designed using the Center of Online Learning's Common Course template. I strongly suggest that you use the Common Course template when designing Cougar View pages because the all of the text choices will be made for you. We'll dive deeper into that when we discuss accessible headings in a future session. But that is text. Then accessible, what is our next feature? We want to talk about accessible color. I've already got my Cougar View HTML editor open, and I'm just going to grab any of this text. I'm going to select the black text, and I'm going to consider that making it another color. So we go to the Cougar View HTML editor and we select the color tool, and I'm going to get this nice little pop-up with a color palette, and I'm going to select a bright, beautiful pink, which will match that night blooming cereus. But when I select that palette color, I see that usually you have to scroll to the bottom to see this feature. Cougar View does a great job of automatically telling you whether that color passes or fails the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And here we have, it's a caution sign, and it shows that it fails for both large and small text. The standard is not met. So we see the contrast ratio is below the recommended guideline, the required guideline for accessible text. Well, let's choose a darker color. We'll say, all right, I'm going to choose this darker pink. I got a check mark. The caution changes to a green check mark. Right here, let me zoom in a little bit. Caution changes to a green check mark, and we know that we can apply that color and save that. So I'll go ahead and do that. So now we have a different font color, but it has an appropriate contrast ratio with the background. All right, then we also want to discuss accessible audio. And if we scroll to the bottom, excuse my scrolling, I can see the audio recording that I've added to this page. I have my transcript pasted right below the audio recording. So someone that had difficulties processing auditory information or had a hearing impairment would be able to get the same meaning from this audio recording, and that is the goal of accessibility, to help all users be able to perceive, operate, and understand our content. Okay, what about accessible videos? Well, I'm going to insert my video here, and I'm going to demonstrate how we would insert a video that we uploaded to our course using MyMedia and that we had captioned using the Center of Online Learning Captioning Services. So I'm going to look in my HTML editor toolbar, and on the far left, I've got an icon. Let me zoom out a little bit. Oops, let's go in the other direction. Here we go. It says, when I hover over it, I can see it says Insert Stuff. And that's where I'm going to add my video. And one of the options is MyMedia. If we caption videos for you, they'll be available in their caption format through MyMedia. And I'm going to search for Course Overview because that is the video that I want to add. And I've got my video, so I select the title. And I select Next. It gives me a preview. Yep, that's the right video, and I'm going to insert. And then I can play that in the preview and make sure that it's got accessible captions. And there they are. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that, but that is an example of how we would add accessible video to a Cougar View course. Now, I think that I have demonstrated how to add accessible images, text, video, audio, and color in both very commonly used word processing programs, either Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, or Word. Also, you can add these same features using Google Docs. And if you would like any support, guidance, or help doing that, please reach out to me. My email address is newland_Ann@columbusState.edu. We're going to have upcoming just-in-time trainings on accessible documents. We did touch on 5 of the essential CSU accessibility guidelines today. Next time, we're also going to focus on using properly formatted headings, formatting lists appropriately, creating tables, accessible tables with column and row headers, and providing a description of the destination in your link text. We also have more in-depth courses, which are supportive inclusive practices and developing inclusive practices. And those, you can register for those in the Center of Online Learning Faculty Training and Workshop calendar. Now, in your chat, I have provided links to you for both the Diagram Center's image description guidelines, for the WebAIM contrast checker, and then also for the Center of Online Learning Captioning Services page. If you navigate to that, you'll see our training calendar on the left navigation, and you can use that to sign up for some of our more comprehensive workshops. But I've really enjoyed sharing this critical information with you. And remember, accessible design provides equitable access to your course content for all of your students, regardless of their abilities. And it's just good design for everybody. So does anybody have questions? I'm welcoming those questions from moderators, from those of you attending this. Any questions at this time? Okay, I don't hear anything. It's very quiet on my end. So I guess we're just going to stop the recording. I can go ahead and do that. And then I